Peace, something we are all seeking and yearning for. Peace, something we were once indigenous to. Peace, something we have lost along our way. Our way to obtaining knowledge of self. The knowledge of our ancestors who were removed from their natural state. The knowledge of our people who refuse to be oppressed. In our journey, we lost our grip on peace. In a society of pressure, stress, and traumas, we have become comfortable with holding on to the burdens of fear and anxiety, family secrets buried in our DNA. Change within is our only way back to peace. Peace in our communities, peace in our families, peace within ourselves. A major change in our thinking, in our actions, in our existence is needed. A non-negotiable change. Welcome to the revolution with Sister Talibah.
This is an injustice.
Hey, peace, y'all. Can y'all hear me? Trevor, can you hear me? Okay, I couldn't hear the intro. Peace to everyone. Peace, I ain't going. Peace, Trevor. Peace, no name. Peace to Lil Mama. Shout out to Little Mama whose voice you hear on the intro. She has a beautiful, beautiful voice. Peace to Debbie Clark. Peace to Taz. Peace to Sandra Nichols Martin. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Almost said good morning. Peace to everyone. Peace, peace, peace. Peace, y'all. Peace to everyone. Peace to Concrete Jungle. Thank you for joining us. So peace to everyone she did do a good job, no name. So peace to everyone that is joining us today. If there are any new people in the chat, my name is Sister Talibah Benta. And this is my show, The Revolution. And on The Revolution, we're focusing on implementing positive and necessary shifts within ourselves, our families, and our communities. I wanted to first give a shout out to everyone once again for joining. Shout out to A10 News Media Group, Mickey, Winters, and Trevor for having me on their podcast. Please support the platform through Super Chat, Cash App, like, share, and subscribe. I want to also shout out the Super Chats from last week because last week was my first show, and of course I didn't have it together. So I wanted to make sure that I shouted out to everyone. Debbie Clark, Deborah Luna, Little Mama, Marcia Talbert, Taz, and No Name for contributing a donation to A10 News Media Group. Thank you for all your support. Let's see. So before I get into the subject matter, I want to say Happy Father's Day to all of the men. Thank you for bringing balance into our children's lives. And I hope everyone has a beautiful day today. Thank you to all the fathers. Thank you to my husband, who's an excellent father to our children. And I hope everyone enjoys their Father's Day today. So last week, we focused on self-preservation in regards to disrupting the cycle of trauma. And I chose that for the first episode in this series because of everything that was happening in the community of Flint with the police brutality. You know, we saw Mr. Terrence get pulled out of the car violently. And then the very next day, we saw the police brutality in the city council chambers. And we saw where Debbie Clark, I keep Mr. Chester, and even Art Wilson were mishandled violently by the Flint Police Department. So I thought it was appropriate to start off with self-preservation just because of the amount of emotional and physical violence that our community, that we as a collective experience, whether you're in person or not. If you're just watching, the trauma still affects you. So today we're going to talk about healing your ancestral lineage. This is episode 2 of Disrupting the Cycle of Trauma. And with dealing with our ancestral lineage, we're dealing with trauma that is passed down from those before us, from our ancestors and our elders, our forefathers and foremothers. That trauma shows up in how we were parent and how we choose to parent, how our decision making and how we choose to interact socially. Okay. So, just as a reminder, there are 3 types of trauma, and that's acute, conflict, and complex. And we reviewed this last week, Sunday. The acute is one incident. The conflict trauma is a repeated trauma, such as domestic violence or abuse. And then there's complex trauma, which is also consistent. So keep that in the back of your mind. I think for every show, I'm going to remind you of these 3 types of trauma because honestly, it is possible for us to deal with both conflict and complex at the same time, and really all 3. But if I use the community of Flint, my community as an example, I would say we are constantly in a cycle of conflict and complex. Okay. So ancestral trauma is also known as intergenerational or multi-generational trauma, and it refers to the emotional and psychological impacts of trauma that affect descendants, even if they didn't experience the trauma themselves, and it's passed down through the family line. So it impacts, again, our emotional well-being. So examples of ancestral trauma, and I'm going to see if I can make this bigger so I can, yeah, that should be better. Examples of ancestral trauma, I chose to focus on things that have happened historically and not just in individual families. Sorry about that. So let me explain. Let me stop and explain. I'm filming for the first time from home because I want to be independent and not have to go to the studio. I have 4 boys in a household. So the youngest one just tried to bust in on me, but I got the door locked and blocked. So I apologize for that. So for this one, for the examples of ancestral trauma, I wanted to focus on what has happened to us historically and more of like a group setting instead of like individual families. So I use the examples of like the genocide of indigenous people, such as Native Americans, the Aboriginal people of Australia, of course, Black people in regards to the transatlantic slave trade, the enslavement of our people, and going through the Jim Crow era, the Jewish Holocaust, and the Vietnam War. Those are just some examples. of trauma, specifically through colonization. Um, we were rearranged. We were rearranged to believe that we are not civilized. Our culture was rearranged. We're taught to think that we are inferior, that we were meant to be in a state of enslavement, etc. And this has been passed along the lines, down to us, to where, as a black person, I would say we still deal with some effects of slavery. Um, I believe that, and this is just my belief, the concept of physically disciplining your children comes from being enslaved. It comes from like a protection, um, for our children to not get in trouble by white society. So it's better for me to beat you than the police or the overseer or a white person. It's really like out of fear. So, however, I'm at the point in my life where in my second set of children, I choose to not physically discipline them. I really don't see how it is helpful or how it is a benefit. I know that's a big, uh, maybe like a taboo. Not many people in my culture would agree to it because it's normalized. However, that's just where I'm at. I think there are better ways to redirect a child, instead of whooping them with a belt. So that's just my opinion. Let's go to the next slide. So now another term for ancestral trauma is cultural trauma. And cultural trauma is an impactful event or series of events that leave marks on the group's consciousness and memory of what abuse has occurred. It affects an entire group and it shapes their collective understanding of the world and their specific place within it. Again, this is interchangeable with ancestral trauma, um, but I did choose to break it up because when I think of cultural trauma, my mind went to more recent events that we saw, that has happened to us, such as Hurricane Katrina, the Flint water crisis, and COVID-19. So with Hurricane Katrina that happened in 2005 in Louisiana, specifically in New Orleans. And we saw the effects of that was an environmental crisis. Some would say that was a natural, like an act of God, and others, like myself, would say that is a planned, from the government, um, trauma. Um, I'm not going to get into that conspiracy, or alleged conspiracy about that, but nonetheless, it caused a trauma to where it killed a lot of people. A lot of people were killed and displaced. The same with the Flint water crisis. That for sure, without a doubt, was, I want to say, it was an intentional trauma, and I'm going to say it was an act of genocide. And with the Flint water crisis, more specifically, it affects us our biology. So it affects more so our children, in regards to the high level of leads, in our system. It affects the cognitive. Some say in adults it affects, and I'm gonna go back to the children, it affects the fertility rate, the sperm count. There were reports of women that unfortunately were having miscarriages due to the Flint water crisis. Um, and so that was in 2014. COVID-19, 2020, we saw this trauma occur globally. And I've always believed that it was a man-made situation, and I do believe the government did come out and say that that virus was created in a lab. So the trauma behind it was severe, and it caused a lot of fear. It was fear-based. Um, it caused death, um, and it caused a fear. Let's go deeper. It caused a fear of being social with other people, and it also affected our communities in regards to when the schools were shut down. It caused vulnerable children to be in environments that should be safe that were not safe. So, for example, with the schools being shut down in high risk communities, children were left in abusive homes. Instead of having a break from being in those homes, and by going to school and given 2 meals a day, breakfast and lunch, they were subjected to being in an abusive household, and which further negatively affected their mental health and their emotional health, and of course their physical health. I believe, I haven't checked this statistic lately, but in regards to Michigan, um, the last I heard, Genesee County is in Michigan is the highest county that has child abuse and neglects. So has reports to CPS, Child Protective Services, of children being harmed. So that was a huge concern in our community, and I'm sure in other communities as well. Now, another term that that you hear often in regards to ancestral lineage is called generational curses. And generational curses are negative patterns of behavior, misfortune, or even spiritual afflictions that can be passed down through families across multiple generations. And these patterns are often believed to be a consequence of past sins, mistakes, or trauma experienced by ancestors. And so, in regards to this being a spiritual matter, I decided to take two Bible verses that speak on generational curses. And the first one is in regards to Adam and Eve, when the first sin or error was committed by Adam and Eve. So that's typically known as the fall of mankind or the curse of Adam and Eve. And then there's also in the book of Exodus where the Bible talks about the sins of the parents, and that because of the sins of the parents, the generation, um, their descendants will be punished to the third and fourth generations. I am not an expert on the Bible, so I cannot give a deep feedback in regards to that, but I did want to give an example of generational curses that the Bible does talk about. Um, so I also wanted to bring up Islam for obvious reasons because I'm Muslim, but we don't have a belief that generational curses exist. We're told repeatedly through the Quran that everyone is responsible for themselves, that we do not take on the burdens of another person's soul, of their deeds or decisions. So I did want to give proof of that with these three verses in the Quran. So now let's talk about the biology of trauma, the DNA of trauma, or that trauma affects us physically It impacts our brain function, and it does alter the expression of our genes. So it doesn't necessarily change the gene, but it does uh, interact with how our DNA expresses itself. So what I pulled up is that this is called epigenetics, EPIGENETICS, and that's traumatic experiences can trigger epigenetic changes in a person's DNA, affecting how their genes are expressed. These changes don't alter the DNA sequence itself, but they do influence how the genes function, potentially impacting their offspring. And then there's the DNA methylation. Excuse me for messing up that word, but that's METHYLATION. And one example of an epigenetic change is the DNA methylation, where a chemical tag is added to DNA. And so it influences the gene activity, and these changes in certain genes, like those involved in the stress response, can be passed down to future generations. So examples of that would be maternal trauma in offspring. So whatever the mother experiences during her pregnancy affects the unborn child. And then we see that also with those that fought in war, so veterans that have PTSD. And then there's children that also have PTSD from family trauma or residing in high-risk communities. And so that brings us to adverse childhood experiences, normally called ACEs. And there's a lot of workshops on ACEs. Now, there's a lot of information on ACEs. And I first learned about ACEs when I worked for Head Start, early Head Start and Head Start. And so part of the application process for families to confirm their eligibility into that program was for them to describe the how high risk their family is. So how high risk the community they reside in is. And that was part of the application process. They would ask questions like, is there child abuse and neglect in the home? Does the child reside in a violent neighborhood, etc.? And the majority of our children, if not all of our children, were in high-risk neighborhoods. That's why you see Head Start mainly in or I want to say the majority in urban communities as well as rural communities. Let's see. So with ACEs, like I said, there's a lot of information on ACEs. A good site to go to is the CDC. And it has a ton of information about ACEs. And ACEs occurs in childhood from 0 to 17 years. So it actually occurs when the child is in the womb, like I said it earlier. So examples, again, experiencing violence, abuse, or neglect, witnessing violence in the home or community, having a family member attempt or die by suicide. And a child experiencing this is more likely to grow up with substance abuse problems, mental health problems, and instability overall. And so I recall when I worked in Head Start, there was a child that we had, and actually it was in early Head Start. So early Head Start services children from 0 to 3 years old, and then Head Start services children that are 3 and 4 years old. So in early Head Start, in one of my classrooms that I was over, um, there was a child, and I think he was turning 3. But anyways, when he was an infant, the child was home when his mother was murdered. And actually, I'm not going to say who, of course, I'm not going to say who the child was or the family, because this was actually a high profile case. So the child was literally in their crib when someone came in and murdered his mother. Okay. So the grandparents were now raising a child. Do you know that during that time, the child would have nightmares at night? There were certain specific behaviors that the child would express at home and in school that showed that he remembered what happened to his mother, and he was an infant in a crib. So I don't know how he's doing now. This was a few years ago, but that's one really good example of how when a child, but just a baby, is how the trauma affects a child's brain development, how it affects their nervous system. I just wanted to share that. Let's see. Let's check the chat. Okay, let me go up some. Marcia, peace, Marcia. This information is so accurate about what a child experiences in utero, affecting them as they grow. Oh, thank you, Trevor, because I'm trying to learn this still. I adopted my daughter whose bio is a pathological liar. My child lies. Marcia, isn't that amazing? And it's also scary to me. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to talk about that further down the line, like towards the end. But it is amazing to me how a child can be similar to their parents when their parents is non-existent or absent from their life. That is amazingly scary to me. And then it also reminds me of that argument about where we get our personalities, that nurture versus nature. And I really think it's a combination of both. It's in you, like your personality, like your genes help I don't know, like create your personality, but then it's also learned behaviors. So I don't know how, Marcia, how do you deal with that? Because that's one thing that I can't handle, even with my own children. Lying, I can't handle that, and I go berserk. When you get a chance, put in the chat how you handle that. Peace, Carol Kincaid. Have done my best to help families see how important that gestation period to gestating fetus, mother and family. Some listen, and I guess some don't. My child lies as easy as breathing. I have definitely seen this. They can lie without a second thought. I believe that lie behavior is a biological function. Let me put this up. Familiar to the feeling in the womb relative to the mother's behavior. Sorry, Trevor. I'm getting the hang of this. It is scary. It is scary. I hate that I can't trust anything she tells me. She'll be 22 in August. So, Marcia, I don't know. I think I want you to call in, because how do you separate that behavior from, how do I say this? And I'm going to just say it, and it might sound really bad. How do you show nurturing and parenting and love to someone that you can't trust? How do you have your child in your home that you cannot trust? And I hope that's not stepping on your toes with me asking this question, but I'm very interested in your answer and in your perspective. When I open up the phone lines, if you feel comfortable, please call in, or just put it in the chat, or just say you don't want to go that deep. But as a parent, how do you address that? And how do you be consistent with nurturing them? And I want to say accepting that behavior. I hope I'm making sense. No name. You also have to talk about appetite behavior, then curse ultimately becomes trauma. No name, you're going to have to explain that. Okay, thank you, Marcia. You're going to call. Well, I'm not quite ready. I'm almost at the end. I'll pull up the phone number in a minute. I'll put it on the screen now. Oops, no, that's the morning bump. Y'all be patient with me. Take that off. Okay. A sister gonna get it together. Okay, Carol Kincaid. When I was a nanny, I would ask why, no answer, then reminded them that they may get away with it now, but when the day comes that they can no longer get away with it, I do not have to be there. P. Sherry Allen. Okay. Thank you, no name. A sister trying. It's a little funny because I feel like I was more comfortable in the studio last week than being in the comfort of my own home. But I'm going to get the hang of it. It's going to flow better each and every time I do a show. So, okay, let's keep it pushing. Let's go to the next slide. So, ancestral lineage healing. Get my paperwork. How do we heal from our lineage? And so, ancestral lineage healing is a practice focused on addressing generational trauma and patterns by connecting with and healing one's ancestors. So it acknowledges the interconnectedness of the living and those that have transitioned, believing that the well ancestors can guide and support the healing of those who have passed with unresolved wounds. Uh-oh. Thank you for calling in to the Revolution with Sister Talibah. Okay, they hung up. So whoever that was, call back, please. Ancestral lineage healing, it involves rituals such as guided trance and dream work. So let me just say, I've never done a trance. I don't have any knowledge of a guided trance. I've never participated in that. But I guess the point is to connect with one's ancestral guide. So you connect with your ancestors on a spiritual, metaphysical level to restore balance and wholeness with the family lineage. So if someone in the audience has knowledge of that technique, please, you can call in and explain it or put it in the chat. In regards to dream work, I don't know specifically what kind of dream work you would do. There is one practice that I do when I want an answer. And this is not even in regards to me wanting to connect to my ancestors, right? But when I want to answer about something, I ask God to please give me resolve or give me an answer and show me in my dreams. Now, I specifically choose my dreams because my dreams are very vivid. Um, and I record my dreams. I have a diary of my dreams. They're very specific. In my dreams, I usually get warnings of what is to come. Um, I receive guidance in my dreams as well. Um, and there's quite a few dreams that I can think of right now that I am seeing that it is on its way of manifesting. So I am a dreamer. So I can understand dream. They say that. I don't know anything about trances. That's not even something that I'm interested in. So I think what I would suggest, I always suggest for people to sit in silence, because that is when answers come to you. Because honestly, your soul already knows the answers. Our conscious mind, along with like self-doubt, or if we have low self-esteem or we're not confident, we second guess ourselves, and then we ask other people what they think to get validation or to get guidance instead of trusting ourselves. So that is like my number one answer um, to any type of healing work. In regards to ancestral lineage, though, I would say look at the patterns that show up in your family. Is there a pattern of, I don't know, is there a pattern of child abuse and neglect? Is there a pattern of sexual abuse? Is there a pattern of any type of deviant behavior? Or it doesn't even have to be deviant. It could be a communication issue. So let me go back one slide. I'll share, like in my family, and I was just raised in my mother's family, and I don't know much about my father's family. But in my mother's family, there is a pattern of ineffective communication, like passive aggressiveness. And I remember growing up, and like as a teenager, how you will have a falling out with your parents, or an argument, disagreement. I can remember being being silent, um or holding on to grudges, I should say, and not talking for days at a time. And so I grew up seeing that. I grew up seeing uh um when it's time to reconcile, there really isn't a reconciliation. It's just, okay, after a few days of not speaking to each other, then, okay, how you doing? Like you pick up like nothing even happened. So the offense or the problem or the issue is never acknowledged, talked about, resolved. And I've seen that um, with my mother and other family members, like my uncles. And what I have learned is that they learned it from my grandfather. So where did he learn it from? I'm not sure, but I do know that my grandfather had a mother wound, a mother wound in his heart. Um, he had issues with his mother. So maybe that affected how he communicated with his own family. So that's one pattern that I see in my own family, and I seen within myself. I've gotten much better than that, and I strive to not go there, but I can. I can, Lord have mercy. I can hold a grudge, and that's not even healthy. And I'm not bragging. That's nothing to brag on. That is really something to heal from, because grudges make you sick, and grudges make you bitter and miserable. So it's better and it's a relief to make peace with the person that you have an issue with. Thank you.
Hi there.
Turn your volume down in the background, please.
I will right now.
Thank you for calling into the Revolution with Sister Talibah. How can I help you? What's your name?
Hi, Sister. Hi, Sister Talibah. This is Carol Kincaid.
Hey, Miss Carol. How are you?
I'm good. I wanted to share a little of my personal story and how this, especially not necessarily the trans work, but how important the ancestral lineage healing is. My mother was a violent mother, physically, verbally, emotionally, and it was really an awful experience for myself and my siblings. And the three of us came up hating that experience and projecting hate onto her. And later in life, you know how you work on yourself to try to figure out what's going on. I realized that it was a pattern that had been in place for at least 3 generations that I can track, where the mother was violent to especially the girls, but not without violence to the boys. And when I recognized that, you know, I talked to my brothers about it, and I said, you know, whatever's going on, it needs to stop here. And my older brother was already a wonderful parent, and my younger brother died young. He had a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, but he was just a terrifically engaged father. I never had kids because my greatest fear, you know, that lineage was that I would become a mother like my own.
Right.
And I could not face doing that kind of damage to a child.
Yes, ma'am.
So, like with my comments, in that study, one of the first things that came to me, and I had a cousin that was a biochemist, and back in the early 70s, she played classical music for her growing fetus. And you know, this young man, he came out in the middle of rock, of heavy metal, loving classical music.
Yes.
So, you know, it's like in my mind, it affirmed that, yes, whatever's going on when that fetus is gestating is critical. And what I figured out, and I've seen some articles come in recent years, the stressors on that fetus cause all these chemical changes in the mother, and it's communicated into the womb. And that is what the fetus considers normal. So when this child is born, when a gestating fetus is growing in chaos, that child seeks chaos to feel normal. So wouldn't you rather not to get, you know, sent to the corner? Wouldn't you rather not get your butt beat? Wouldn't you? Those are all good questions. But until you can replace that sense of normalcy with your communications, because it takes action and talk.
Yes.
Or if talk isn't available, some form of communication for that child to pull it together. Nobody can heal us but ourselves. But you watch these little babies, and they rock. They learn. So there.
Yes. I agree with you.
Yeah. So,
yes.
And if anybody, you know, if anybody needs somebody to talk to, you can reach out to me in my Facebook Messenger. I'm not going to charge any money. But sometimes you need someone to talk to that's not going to tell you you're a horrible parent because your child turned out this way.
Right.
You know, I tell some parents, sometimes these kids are just born.
Yes.
And they change. Go
Mhm.
figure.
Yes. So what type of work did you
So,
do? Are you a social
um,
worker?
no, I have worked in several different fields, clerical work with the clerk of the court, uh, you know, customer representatives in a lot of different fields. I worked as a psychic, and I have for going on 50 years now. And I'm hesitant to push that out there, but I'm proud of the work that I've done. The
Yes.
people whose lives I've watched mature. It's about the quality of life these people achieve. It is not about me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
And
appreciate
when
your
you mentioned the
knowledge.
dreams,
Go ahead. Go ahead,
when
Miss
you
Carol.
yeah, I used to have those. I don't have them so much now, but I'll have waking up wisdoms.
Yes.
And lastly, on the dream front, I'm going to hang up because I know other people want to speak. I had a repetitive dream for well over 20 years. In some of the study I was doing said, when you find out why you have that dream,
Mm-hmm.
then that will break that cycle. And it was a horrific dream. I dreamed I was in the French Resistance, that I would be captured. And you know that wrist twist they do that burns your skin? There were all
Yes.
kinds of, tortures that I endured. And, thank God I finally got away. But one, I learned it was reflective of what I was experiencing. And oddly, I do believe in reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
It connected with my younger brother. I was talking to him about it shortly before he passed, and he goes, well, you believe I killed you, don't you? And I said, no. I said, I do believe you were responsible for my death, but I do not believe you are the one that executed the task.
Now,
And I had one of those dreams that broke that. I'm listening.
no, I apologize. I thought you were done.
No.
So,
Please.
Miss Carol, I appreciate you sharing that you believe in reincarnation. I actually grew up in a family that has that same ideology also, that believes that spiritual thought. So I can relate to you with that. My question to you is, because you described the dreams about the torture and like war, being in situations of war, do you believe in astral traveling? Do you believe that your soul leaves your body when you sleep at night and you experience you can experience other time?
Yes, but it's a broader view.
Yes.
I believe that all things are related to each other, no matter where you are. You're here. We're here, there, everywhere, all at once, kind of like the title on that new movie, last year's movie. And I believe that exists at all times. But like you said, in the dream, in sleep state, you can more easily access certain facets.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Of course it does. Of course it does.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like I was listening to that Dustin kid the other day. I really hope to have more insight about that the following morning, but I didn't. But when I get a lot of information all at once, my mind has to sort it out. And usually when I wake up in the morning, it'll pop.
Yes.
And that string of thought will come. So
okay.
That's another way. Yeah, that's another way. And last but not least, I'd like to tell all the parents, if you think you've had a brilliant moment and it doesn't make sense, rest with it for a while, because that brilliant moment is insight from the Creator.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, Miss Carol. Thank you for calling in and sharing your wisdom. Thank you so much. And your
Sister Talibah,
experiences.
I think you're wonderful.
Thank you, Miss Carol. I think you're wonderful.
Life's a mirror. I'll let you go.
Okay. All right. You have a good day, Miss Carol. Be safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. If anyone else would like to call in and share or give their insight or perspective, please do. I'm going to go to the next slide. we're almost done with this PowerPoint. So like I said, in regards to addressing any situation where you feel that healing needs to be done, I always say sit in silence, and you can interpret that as a meditation, really. So take a deep breath, sit in silence, and think of the patterns of trauma and dysfunction in your family. Record or journal what comes to mind, and ask for guidance and trust what you receive. Trust yourself. No one can give you any answers or guidance about what you have experienced. No one can validate your feelings but you. No, you're not crazy. Um, no, you're not quote unquote small, if that makes sense. Um, and this is something that I am still working on within myself, is fully trusting myself and fully um validating my own self and not having to um get validation from other people. Thank you for calling in to the Revolution with Sister Talibah. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, Sister Eva. This is Marcia H. Albert.
Hi, Marcia. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well. I'm just, getting adjusted.
I am loving your topic this morning. It's very it's powerful because I think God puts people in your life or in a moment for you to be able to face some of the things that you're going through.
Yes.
Because when you put that slide up and just face, I was like, oh my gosh, that is what I've been going through with my daughter. I mean, maybe since she was like 5, since she went to school.
Yes.
And I've always lived by this mantra: I can't stand a liar and a thief.
Yes.
And she's turned out to be both. I mean, to the point where at one point she put my job in jeopardy because she stole my work phone and I couldn't find it. I had to make it. It was great. And so we're asking, how do I deal with that? I think one of the things that I have found over the years is that I address it and then I leave it alone, because that's what my mother taught me. Like, she was the person who said, well, I'm just going to say this right now and then I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do that with my daughter, I just say, I'm just going to say this and then I'm done, because I can't let this permeate to my soul. You're not going to be the death of me, because you won't stop doing the behavior that is detrimental to you. It's not to me, it's to her. So, recognizing that her biological mother was a pathological liar, and I know the family, so it's I've known it all her life,
Right.
That I think is another way that I can cope with it, because I can't trust that what she's telling me is true or why, but at the same time, it all comes out in the end, and I usually find out.
Mm-hmm.
So I just say, this is what I'm dealing with. She's been in therapy since kindergarten, and now, being a 21-year-old in college, I'm starting to see that there may also be some mental health issues. I'm trying to deal with that as well. And of course, we just survived the Eaton in Altadena, California. And so I think that, on top of everything else, she's just, every time she opens her mouth, I swear to goodness, it is a lie. And it's stupid stuff.
Right.
Like, did you give your dog his vitamins? Yes. Well, that's not true, because I see the box, and it's just like the little things. So I just am looking at she needs to be in therapy, and I have resources available to us. I am in therapy every week, but she needs to go back. So it was so crazy. Yesterday, she texted me. She's like, "Hey, Mom, what's my what did she say? What's my insurance card information?" And I was like, "Oh, well, maybe she's trying to reach out to, find out about behavioral health." And it was a good sign, but that's how I deal with it, and prayer, and just constant little, "Hey, I'm gonna say this and I'm done. I know you're lying to me," and then I leave it alone. And that's kind of how I have to face it now, because she's an adult living at home, rent free. So
Yes.
I just try to, let her keep her space and stay in her place. And I know that what she's saying, I can't trust it until I find out that it was true. So I just deal with it through therapy, prayer, and I pray for her, and I pray to God about her, and I pray with her. But we'll see what happens.
Yes, I appreciate you sharing that. And the biggest take from your call in is the fact that you address it and you leave it alone. I have to learn that, because I grew up, and let me just say this as a disclaimer. When I talk about
Okay.
whatever traumas that I have endured, I'm not speaking from like a victim place or like blaming place. You know what I mean? I'm just
Yeah.
stating facts. So how I grew up is like the behavior was beat down, so to speak. If that makes sense, like you don't let it go. And I've
Right.
made that same mistake, that same error, whereas like I hold on to it.
That's a whole different.
Yeah,
Right.
I hold on to it. And then, but I see the benefit of addressing it to correct it and then just letting it go. But it shouldn't
Right.
be like, almost like, if this makes sense. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I have. So, but when you put a child on punishment, meaning like if you take something away from them, but there's no end date, or the end date is like prolonged. Do you understand what I mean? And it's like,
Yes.
I've made that error as well. So I want to be mindful to not consistently or constantly persecute my children when they do something wrong. Like I want us to
Right.
address it, and then let's move on. And hopefully they learned from whatever they did, like the correction. And it also,
Exactly.
yeah, it also reminds me of how in our society, how people that are ex-convicts, when they come out to society, the same thing happens to them. Like no one forgives them for serving their time for whatever crime that they were um uh that they did, or said that they did. That's not the word I want to use, but anyways,
That they were convicted of.
yeah, that they were convicted of, and they still have to pay a price. Like it's hard for them to get housing. It's hard for them to get a job, because that
Right.
sin or that error follows them wherever they are. And I could see how we do that
Right.
to our children as children in the household. We don't let them forget the wrong that they did. You really, really taught me something. And I really appreciate you for that.
You're helping me. Yeah, what you're saying is just like, because we just had a blow up last week. And so I had to put myself in a position to, okay, here's what I saw. here's what you said,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm done.
Yeah.
And so, I'm glad that I can help you with that, because what you did was a reminder to me, like, this is her fault, in a sense where this is what she experienced. I wasn't there. At 5 weeks, I'm the only mother she knows, and my ways should be her ways. She's not me. And so that's where I'm able to just put it out there, like, okay, I'm going to say this and I'm done.
Right.
Please understand that game recognized game. And I know what you're doing. I know what you did. And I'm up on it. Don't think, because I had to tell her one time, you think you're so slick, but you ain't seen slick till you seen slick me.
Right.
And she looked at me. I was like, you don't even understand. You don't even. And that was that whole game recognized game kind of thing. Like, oh, please. I know what you're doing.
Right.
I see you.
Yeah.
So that is, I think, where we should all strive to be. Is like, yeah, you can't pull the okie doke on me, because been there, done that, played it, tried it, didn't win, and now here we go. But I think with age comes wisdom, and that wisdom, you can look back and see where things could have been different, things might have changed, but because she experienced things that I don't understand, because I wasn't there, was not my way to there was a way for me to try to prevent it from happening. I'm just dealing with the repercussions.
Yes.
So I had to find a way to cope. So that's what you need to do. Find a way to cope.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yes, it is.
So thank you for listening. I appreciate you.
Oh, no.
I appreciate you more than you even know. So,
the feeling is mutual.
Yes, I'll be there in August, so hopefully I will get to meet you and give you a hug and just talk to you one-on-one.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm looking forward to it, Marcia. Okay. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you, Sister Talibah. Thank you. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Another caller, y'all. Thank you for calling The Revolution with Sister Talibah. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Little Mama.
I'm sorry, say that again. I didn't have you on speaker.
I said, peace, Sister Talibah. This Little Mama.
Peace, Little Mama. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm getting, I'm feeling more and more relaxed now.
Good. You should. You're amongst family and friends.
Yes, ma'am. And everyone, this is the lovely voice you hear is the one on my intro. I'm so proud of her, and I'm so grateful for her doing my intro.
Thank you. It was an honor. Trust me. It was.
Yes, ma'am. So what do you have to add to the conversation?
Well, I wrote a couple of points down, as far as when you spoke on astral traveling.
Yes.
In the dream, when you're dreaming, I swear I felt like I had these different type of, I don't want to call it out of body experiences, but it feels that way. I'm in the dream and I'm out with people. I know the people that I'm with. It could be my sons, it could be my parents or family. And we're in an unfamiliar place, but it still feels familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Like you walk in one room of somewhere and then you go into a different room and you're in your house, but you wasn't in your house in the other room. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes.
Or I love to sing. No, I'm not a singer, but I love to sing. So I always have these different dreams of celebrities. I don't know what that's about, but I'm singing with or dancing with, like someone that I absolutely love.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what that. It just seems like I can see myself having this experience.
Right.
And I'm looking at myself having these different experiences. Mm-hmm. And as far as holding grudges, I'm also connect that with unforgiveness.
Yes.
To me. holding on to grudges or living in unforgiveness. I'm still trying to work on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it causes sickness in the body.
Yes.
And it kind of locks you up as like arthritis. You know, it's I don't know if it's just energy not being able to flow throughout your body properly
Mm-hmm.
and being stuck. But I do believe in that, and that's just something I'm personally working on.
Yes.
And the last thing, the stress that you encounter while you're pregnant,
Yes.
can affect your children one way or another. With my youngest, it was a very stressful situation with his dad, but luckily he came out as a very happy baby.
Mm-hmm.
I was so shocked by that because I just knew, as sad as I was during my entire pregnancy, that, you know, he would come out kind of maybe mean or something. But no, it was the total opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very grateful for that. Although, you know, other situations could come up, but I am grateful that it definitely didn't turn out the way that I thought.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes, I can relate to that, little mama. I tell people all the time, I have 6 children, and if I could redo I'm gonna say 5 of the pregnancies over again, I would do
Mm-hmm.
it. My best pregnancy was my last pregnancy, and that
Okay.
was like the most high risk one because I was 39 years old at the time, and my baby is 5 years old now. And on my last 4 pregnancies with all 4 of my sons, I already had gestational diabetes, and that's what made it high risk. But I just feel like the emotional part and the mental part, I wish I would have been more disciplined with, I want to say, how I express my emotions and how I protected myself when I was going through certain things, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it really does affect how your babies come out. And I'm saying it now. It makes no sense to have regrets, or, everything is a lesson. Everything is a lesson. So I'm very thankful that I have learned the lesson of um, protecting our babies and our wombs, because that's going to help me help protect the next woman who's going through a pregnancy. You know what I mean? So, but I believe my roughest one was the first one, because I was
Mm-hmm.
18 years old and I was a senior in high school. And
Oh,
yeah, so please don't come in. Child, these
I
boys.
know. I have to. So
I have barricaded myself in my den.
yeah,
Like,
they find you.
man, yeah.
No matter where, they will find you.
Yes. So, that first pregnancy, I can remember like being angry, being upset, just going through a lot of high emotions. And I'm young, I'm 18, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I
Yeah.
definitely saw how that affected my daughter, my baby girl. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I won't get into all of that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I appreciate you calling in and sharing your experience. Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. And again, let me just say that you are doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you
So
so
just keep up
much.
the great work. You're welcome. You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
And peace to everybody in the chat. I'm jumping back in.
Okay. All right. Have a good
All
day,
right.
little mama.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, y'all. Y'all are calling in with some great energy, good information. I love the transparency. This is a safe space for us to share, learn, and grow with each other. And I'm really grateful to be in this experience right now. Uh oh, somebody call. Good afternoon. Thank you for calling the Revolution with Sister Talibah. What's your name? And up, and then they hung up on me. Okay, so I'm gonna keep it moving. Call or call back. Okay, keeping up with the chat. Okay, so again, the healing process. I'm suggesting that you begin with taking a deep breath. Last week I shared that I have anxiety. I have a diagnosis of anxiety. So when I feel like that anxiety come on, or like a almost like a panic, I have to stop and take deep breaths, slow and deep breaths, to calm me down. Sit in silence and reflect on the patterns that you see within your family unit, and reflect on how you have expressed those patterns. Record, journal what comes to mind, and that includes like audio recording, and ask for guidance and trust what you receive. So let's go to the next slide. We're almost done. So this is part of my resources that I wanted to share with everyone. And this first one, I really would like to see this on a macro level or a collective uh, level. So, for instance, I'm going to use city council as an example, because if we had nine uh, nine strong-minded people, or even nine elders, that would implement this, the seventh generation principle. And so this comes from the Haudenosaunee, Haudenosaunee tribe, a Native American tribe. And they, when they make a decision, it could be any decision in regards to their community, they think about how their decision will affect the next 7 generations. Now, how cool is that? And how considerate is that? So you're not kicking a can down the road. You're not passing on problems to your descendants, but you are practicing, first off, good and effective communication skills, and you're passing on rationality, balance, harmony, to be considerate of your descendants, and when you're not even here. How is this going to benefit my descendants up until 7 generations? So if we build a house on this street, how is it going to benefit our descendants into the 7th generation? I mean, I just think that's so powerful. And I would love if every community had a circle of elders, or a circle of strong-minded, balanced people that thought like that. This is how government should be ran. This is how our community should be conducted. So this is an answer, in my opinion, for our collective healing, where we consider each other and we consider each other's families for the long run. It eliminates corruption. Okay, let's go to the next slide. My next resource is healing resource is this forgiveness ritual. And I tried to get the correct pronunciation. However, Google would not translate it. So I'm going to pronounce this African tribe in the way I think it's pronounced, Bimba. and it's a tribe of Zambia and the Congo. And so they practice forgiveness when an individual of that tribe acts irresponsibly. And so they put this individual at the center of the village, and each community member recalls their good deeds to help them come back to themselves. Can you all imagine doing this in your household with your children? So just like I appreciate Marcia saying how she addresses an issue with her daughter, and then she lets it go. Let's do that, and let's surround that child in a circle, put them in a circle, and let all members of the family say, so and so, I remember when you did this, or at least say something good about them. Man, if that was done for me now at the age of 45, that would give me so much happiness, inspiration, motivation to be recognized for your good deeds. And I believe that will lead to that person opening up about why they acted irresponsibly in the first place. What do you all think about that? I just think that's a powerful ritual, and I believe I'm going to start implementing it. Let's see. I'm catching up on these comments. Happy Father's Day. Would like to mention the information you bring forward brings in many traditions, makes me think of becoming community. Yes, Miss Carol. Marcia, I'm going through so much and have been through too much to hold on. I have to forgive so I can move on without the weight. Yes, no name. You can still call in. Good afternoon, Sassy Shay. Okay. So let's go on to the next healing resource. And this is something that I practice, not as consistently as I would like, but I practiced it consistently for 30 days. And when I tell you the results, it was amazing. So this is a Hawaiian mantra or chant. It's not religious. It's no spiritual doctrine, no religion attached to this. And it's called Ho'oponopono. And I broke it down so you could easily pronounce it. Ho'oponopono. And it means to make right or to put in order. And so you say 4 lines. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And I went through a time in my life where my uncle had told me about this. I had never heard of it. And I want to say that this, along with, what I do Islamically, helped save my mind, my sanity, and it saved my life, because I went through a severe heartbreak where I felt that the hurt that I was receiving from a family member, I really felt like they were trying to kill me. And I was pregnant at the time. So again, everything that I was feeling, my baby was feeling. And when I tell you, let me back up. This was during the month of Ramadan, where Muslims fast from dawn until sunset. And I could not fast because I was pregnant, and I was diabetic during my pregnancy. So I could not fast with my family or with my community. But what I did do is I increased my prayers. I ran to my prayers. In case you didn't know, Muslims pray 5 times a day. And when each prayer came in, I ran to my prayers. And after my prayers, I would meditate, and I would include Ho'oponopono in my meditation. So for the person that was, I felt was trying, I'm gonna say trying to kill me, because that's how bad of a heartbreak I had. I would close my eyes and I would visualize their face like I'm talking to them. And I would see them in my mind and I would say their name, their birth name. And I would say, so and so, I apologize. So I apologize is me taking responsibility or any accountability for what I have done subconsciously, consciously, that has caused this situation to manifest. Please forgive me. Please forgive me for, again, whatever I have done to cause this. So this is me being accountable. Thank you. Thank you, so and so, for this experience, because it's teaching me uh how to evolve. It's teaching me, I'm learning a lesson, I'm gaining knowledge. And I love you. I love you for this experience. That may sound odd, but it worked for me. And I did this for 30 days. Y'all, when I tell y'all, I ran to my prayers daily, I ran to meditate. Even when I would be in the car driving by myself, I would not turn on the radio. I did not listen to music. I would practice Ho'oponopono. And I would be driving down the street and I would say the person's name, so and so, I apologize. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And I kept doing it over and over again. When I was at work, you can actually look this up on YouTube, and some people have made songs about it. So I would listen to it in my office for 30 days straight. And I saw results. I saw significant results. I'm trying to get back into that habit. Um, it did help me in the long run. So obviously, I highly suggest this for everyone to do this. It has nothing to do with religion. In fact, um, healing resources have anything to do with religion. Okay. Okay, last slide. Accountability. What can I do differently? So, let's see. The first thing you can do is apologize. Apologize to, hold on. Just 1 second, caller. So the first thing you can do is apologize for what you have done. So in regards to the patterns of trauma in your family, and you recognize it within yourself, like with your own children or with anyone else in your family, apologize with sincerity and explanation. Explain why you did what you did. Commit to yourself and that person that you're going to do better. Affirm the positive in yourself and your descendants, and promote peace, forgiveness, and happiness in your household. As I'm telling the audience this, I'm speaking to myself first. Everything that I share with you all in regards to the healing, I'm really going to make an effort and going to strive to do within my own household. I had one incident recently. Now, this is going to bring up the incident where I recently was thrown out of city council and dealing with the aggressive police officer. He was super aggressive. He did not put his hands on me, but he wanted to. And I thank Allah for Winters. Winters, oh Lord, Winters put her body in between me and that officer. And Winters told me later, she said he had hell in his eyes. That man, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the same officer that punched Debbie Clark in the face on June 2nd at that city council meeting. So anyways, I'm very grateful to Winters. But I recognize, or I didn't realize it at the time, but like a few days after that incident, I was taking one of my sons to martial arts. And I had my 5-year-old, I actually had all my boys with me in the car. And my 5-year-old was being a 5-year-old. Mama, 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 mama. In my mind, I'm still processing. I'm thinking about that cop and I'm seeing his face. And I yelled at my 5-year-old to stop. I had to apologize to my 5-year-old. I am so sorry because I had redirected my anger to him and that wasn't right. So my 5-year-old, I gave my sincere apology to my 5-year-old and I explained to him, I didn't tell him why I yelled at him, the specifics, but I said, Mama was wrong for that. I apologize for hurting your feelings. I should not have yelled at you. You did nothing wrong. Mama is thinking about something else. So even an apology to your children or to anyone, a sincere apology with explanation, without just saying, I'm sorry, but with sincere explanation of why you did what you did and fully acknowledging that you were incorrect, does wonders. My oldest daughters, they're 26 and 24. That is something that they have told me repeatedly, how appreciative they are that I have came back. I followed up with an apology when I hurt their feelings. So I don't know about any other culture, and maybe this not even a cultural thing, but I'm gonna just say this. Definitely in the Black community, or at least how I grew up, the parents, the elders did not apologize to the children. It was like stay in a child's place and that's it. If you got in trouble, you got in trouble. Even if the elder was wrong, then and everybody knew that elder was wrong, but no, you still got to take that as a child. And no one corrects the elder. So what I am promoting and pushing for is for all of us to be accountable and to teach our children to be accountable. There are a lot of people walking around that don't believe in being accountable. So let's start implementing that within our own households. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you for calling in to the Revolution with Sister Talibah. What's your name and where are you calling from?
What's up, sis? This is
This is who?
No Name. What's up?
Hey, peace, no name. How are you?
Good. So I wanted to actually expound on what I had put in the chat about appetite behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that trauma, we don't look at this enough, but trauma actually does birth an appetite in us. And an appetite becomes a behavior, and a behavior becomes a curse, right? So I think that a lot of the times we try to attack the curse and not where did the curse come from. A curse doesn't just show up.
Right.
Even in the Bible, we see that, right? Adam and Eve, they had an appetite for something. It became a behavior, and then a behavior became a curse.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to also look at that. Then the second thing that I was going to say is that I saw a lot of people talking about, women carrying children and children also, children feeling what the parent is feeling, right? But I want to take a little different approach. I do believe that, but I believe it also starts in conception.
Yes.
Or when you're conceived, right? So I think that we in society have taught about makeup sex. I believe that the spirit that you make a child in is the spirit that the child will carry for the rest of its life.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times when people are having, I think we have to also realize too that men are the carriers of seed and women incubate the seed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are creating a child in offense, most likely the child will be reared up in offense or is incubated in offense. So we have to be careful at
how we look at certain things when it comes to trauma. I've seen this, and you know my line of work, so you know this is up my alley. So I tell people all the time, if you are not going to deal with offense, then you shouldn't be making children.
Mm-hmm.
Or doing an act that could possibly create a child where they will be incubated and not loved, because children are supposed to be made in love.
Yes.
If you are making a child in anything other than that, and so a lot of times when we look at the behavior of a child, you have to ask, okay, well, where did that start?
Mm-hmm.
Where did it start? It may not, it's not always who they're hanging around with. It could have been the environment that they were incubated in or conceived in. So that's all I had to say. As always, you're doing a great job. I'm proud of you, and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you, No Name. Thank you for calling in. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm glad you brought it up, because I had wrote when I had the slide up in regards to the adverse childhood experiences. I said I had wrote down to talk about how we need to consider both sides of the lineage, the matriarchal and the patriarchal, and
Absolutely.
that causes us to be, or should causes us to be cautious about who we choose to procreate with or who we choose to lay with, and knowing that whether you're using protection or not, there is a chance of pregnancy evolving from that. So I'm so happy that you brought that up about conception, because that is very true, extremely true. And then it makes you wonder, like, with all these people, but with all with a lot of people that believe and promote, I mean, we live in a society that promotes casual sex, and sex is really a responsibility, and I do believe it to be a portal.
It's a spirit. Yeah.
Go ahead. What did you say?
It's a spiritual experience.
Yes.
And so when you were talking about earlier about the sins of the father, it actually connects with a scripture in Proverbs that talks about a father leaves an inheritance to their children. So people have to be careful that are you leaving wounds or are you leaving wisdom? That's the inheritance that children inherit, right? And so the reality is that many of us are fighting wars and trying to put out fires, and it is because of trauma that we did not create. It was passed down to us. And so we have to make sure that if we're going to have children, that we're making sure that we're not just passing down wisdom, that we're not passing down wounds, behaviors, and appetites. And because my thing is this, I don't want my child to have to break something that they did not create.
Right.
So we have to make sure that we are leaving pure inheritances for our children. You know, we focus in the Black community about leaving money, but very rarely do we focus on leaving wisdom. I am who I am because of the wisdom of my mom and my aunt and my grandfather. I thank God for them. You know, I have my own traumas that I'm overcoming. But overall, I have more wisdom than wounds, and I'm grateful for that.
Yes, beautifully stated. I really, really appreciate you calling in and sharing your perspective and bringing so much wisdom to the platform. It really starts at conception.
Absolutely. Love you.
All right. Love you, No Name. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too.
Okay, y'all. No Name pretty much dropped the mic on us. I love everything that he said. I love everything that really everyone said, but the conception is really important. So we have to be, and we need to teach our children to be cautious about who they choose to be intimate with. Okay, so let me take this off. the screen and put myself back on like this. Okay, cool. All right. Well, that was another show, the second show for the revolution for the season, Disrupting the Cycle of Trauma. And I look forward to next week, Sunday at 12 o'clock, where we will discuss another aspect of trauma and go over ways on how to heal ourselves, how to heal our families, and how to heal our communities. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your participation in the chat and for calling in. And I appreciate you all. Please support A10 News Media Group by way of super chats. I hope I didn't miss a super chat. If I did, please forgive me. I'm still learning and striving to balance everything as I go. I'll get it. I'll perfect it. You can support A10 News Media Group by way of Cash App as well. I love you all. Thank you so much. And see you next week, Sunday at 12. Peace, everyone.